All right, I think I'm live. 2021, here we are. All right, dudes. You guys already got your guitar type beats queued up, it looks like. Let's do some audio tests as always. I changed the layout because the last one was causing a huge mess, if you guys remember. Yako's saying WTF. I don't think he likes it. But is the mic audio good so far? Let's start there. And then we'll review some beats. Loud and clear. All right. This feels weird, says Kemi. Chemtrails Kemi. Let's listen to this little beat right here. Here we go. All right, so that's a little audio test there. Let's figure out whether that works. And the video's good too. Last time, if you guys remember, I was like blurry and stuff. So, yeah. Hopefully the video's better. And yes, we are back to email. As you guys can see in the instructions. How does my fingers work? Over here. Back to email because the last system was very confusing. The keyword we will announce shortly in a couple minutes. Let's just let some more people come in. So yeah, just send your beat to the email with the subject line as the keyword that I'm gonna say in like a couple minutes. Include your Discord name so I can copy and paste your beat into the Discord so everyone knows which beat, who did what. Lou Reed says I'm blurry. Is it like horribly blurry or is it just like decent? Because I think it's a webcam at the end of the day. Yako says I'm naturally blurry. I'm like Bigfoot. Because I'm still using a webcam, so like I think no matter what, it's gonna be some level of garbage. But what can you do? Ben Sharp is in here. Nice to see Ben. Arcane's in here. We might start already. It's like 480 blurry. I mean, this webcam is like, I think it's like a decade old or something. So, whatever. 8-bit. I wonder if I should, I'll figure that out later on. Whatever, it's okay, blurry. I agree, Arcane. Did I watch any crazy Asian movies recently? What's the last movie I watched? I watched 1917 a couple of days ago. That was a beautiful movie. I enjoyed it. All right, guys, the first keyword. Let's start off. Let's have some fun. How about this? Let's do a fun little keyword here. As the subject line, let me know what your favorite movie is, and I'll just pick based off of that. Oh, Yako says I look fine. He's hitting on me already, guys. Ooh. Sightless music officials from the UK. Why no guitar beats? I'm sick of them, Noseblind. I'm sick of them, that's why. So the first subject or the first keyword is send me what your favorite movie is, movie title. And I'll just pick some random beats from there. Also include your Discord name, please. Transformers. That's silly. In the meantime, while those come in, let's do a Discord beat while we wait for those. I forgot to close down submissions, but whatever. Here we go. First beat of the day. Also, if you're out there in the chats, if you can also leave your review while I review, I find that helpful just to bounce ideas off. Sometimes you guys pick up on things that I don't, just because I'm focused on certain things. So if everyone wants to do a community review, come together, review people's beats, that would be good. Also, I put a compressor on this mic, so hopefully it's louder. Anyways, let's start off with Yako's beat right here. Ganja Man Rhythm. All right, that was a Yakos beat, Ganja Man Rhythm. Many people in the chats are probably going to repeat a lot of things that I'm thinking, which is a good thing to see. So just like Sue and Arcane and Alan said in the chat, with the drums, there was a little bit of weakness that I thought sort of hurt the beat. Grout Master is in here. That's nice to see Grout back again. But yeah, and just like Bill Jones says with the excessive reverb issue, there were no real textures in this beat that were dry and sort of up front. If you guys remember in the video that I made recently, I talked about how you want something in the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. I think the beat did a good job of like making sure there's not some horrible flatness where everything's completely dry. He did play with the space a good amount, but unfortunately just one element being a little bit drier might have helped, and usually it's going to be the drums that will do that, which is why a lot of people said, the snare is kind of weak, the hi-hat's not really working, the kick isn't really working. I think it's just drying out those drums a tiny bit, taking off the reverb. And if you do want a sort of echoey feel, again, that video that I mentioned, where I talked about bussing your drums and then applying a reverb to the bus layer, that can be an idea to create some more depth with your drums. So that might be something you want to do. Really cool textures in the beat though, a really unique idea. I haven't really run into this style of beat, so it's always cool to hear something different. I think you did a really good job of balancing the amount of like the different textures and the, I guess, complexity within each of them. You were very straightforward with your melodic components, and you didn't really have like a huge amount of melodic variation, which opened up space for a more textured type of drum, which is exactly what you did. So I think that was really smart, and it really helped achieve a good balance in the beat. And just like I mentioned, you also achieved good balance spatially in terms of depth. It's just maybe taking one component, which is going to be the drums, and making that dry just to really add more dimensionality and just have a little bit more impact in the beat overall, just because everything sort of felt a little bit wishy-washy and nothing really felt like it had impact. And the reason why is because the drums were just really reverbed to death. Other than that though, cool beat. I enjoyed it. So good job to Yako. Thank you, Yako, for your submission. Let's get into these movie beats. Let's see. Oh, we've got, let's do this one here. Favorite movies, Birdman. Interesting movie from Kalbaisaki. His beat is called Takadimi. So let's take a listen to this beat here. Oh, that's it. I was enjoying that. So that was Takadimi Kalbaishaki. I'm pretty sure I am not pronouncing that correctly. Really cool beat. I really loved the idea behind the beat. The really cool textures were used for a lot of the percussion and drum noises. It's just a very... it sounded like there's like a lot of Foley that was being used, a little bit of like clicking noises and stuff, and that really helped flesh out the percussive layer in the beat, and that really worked well with the sort of vibe of what the beat was going for in terms of like a sort of almost like a flying lotus, early flying lotus type of thing. Awesome job of sampling. You didn't do some crazy chops where you just repeated the chops over and over again and made something sort of Frankensteinish. You just took a nice cohesive loop and you just used that over and over again. Whether you sort of joined different parts together, I'm not sure, but it sounded really fluid. It didn't really sound very choppy and like unmusical. I think it really tied in together really well. The layers that you added on top, most of them worked really well. I'll say that the one sound I didn't really like in it were like the bell sounds. There were certain times in the beat where the bells really worked and you're playing something nice melodically. Other times it almost sounded a little bit chaotic, like the notes were just being played at random. So I think maybe scaling back on that and just being a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more deliberate with which notes are being played could help the beat out. It sounded like you're going with a good direction in terms of the structure. Towards the end of the beat there, you sort of took away the sample and you just had your layers continue to play, which is a really great way of sampling and still being able to structure your beat out. And you did that really flawlessly. That was really impressive. It didn't really feel like everything stopped at once and it was very jarring. You had a very fluid transition. So I would have loved to hear a little bit more of a fleshed out, a little bit more of a full beat in terms of where else you would have gone with it. But in terms of the structure of what you've created so far, really good job. This is a really impressive beat. I think there's a lot of potential here. You've done a great job at a lot of the techniques that a lot of people struggle with, especially when it comes to sampling. So if Called by Shocky is there, good job to you. I look forward to hearing some more of your beats. And it sounds like you've got some beat making skills, if I would have to put my money on it. Catalyst is in here. I'm doing well, Catalyst. Nesty Beats. Who else is in here? Tristan. K Breezy. It's lovely seeing all you guys. No Expectations. Moving on. Whoa, favorite movie is Good Burger. Let's hear this Good Burger type beat by Javon White. Soft piano beat. Only 770 kilobytes, so I can't imagine it's the full beat. Here we go. That was quick. Obviously, not much I can review here. I was like in the middle of writing. So I think this is a good example of what I was just talking about, contrasting to the last beat. I'm not sure whether this was a sample, but you guys could hear there's a sort of very choppy type of arrangement to whether this was a sample or whether it was programmed in with just like chords. It's a very choppy feel to it, and I think that can be something you guys can struggle with a lot of the times, where you just want to keep playing notes over and over again, and that's the way you fill out your beat. I think a lot of the times it might be a better idea just to play something that's musically longer for like a longer period of time. So it sounded like you had like 3 different chords in here. Instead of having those repeat in such a short period of time with like, I don't know, like 8 of the different stabs that you had in here, just prolong it, see if you can come up with something a little bit more musical, just because this felt very disjointed with the way the pianos were programmed. Outside of that, not really much to say because there's not much to review here. The drum pattern was fine as it was. Obviously you can't really review structure, but yeah, I think in terms of whose beat was this? I think I saw it. That was No Expectations beat, I think. I would say just try to focus on getting out of your head in terms of like, I need to add so many more notes, I need to do this and that. Just try to focus on like what feels musical, what actually evokes emotion in you. Just because, in my opinion, a lot of the times when producers go down this route of just like a choppy sort of disjointed feel, it doesn't really evoke much emotion in me. I'm not sure whether I'm just different. Maybe you guys in the chat can let me know. But it doesn't really feel like this type of beat evokes something in me, just because there's not much musicality to it. There's just like a random assortment of notes that are just being played somewhat chaotically. So yeah, I think maybe going more towards something musical could help. But then again, honestly, there's not much I can review here just because this beat's so short, unfortunately. I've never seen Good Burger, but I hear good things. That's another good movie here. Oh, this guy's favorite movie is UK Drill Type Beat. I've never heard of that movie. Talladega Nights. All right, let's listen to Mayhem's Talladega Nights beat, Clouds by Mayhem. His Discord name is Mayhem, but I cannot paste this into my Discord because it's attached to the email. Here we go. All right, that was Mayhem's beat, Clouds. K Breezy saying this MF hard though, so he's enjoying it. Pitts Productions, pretty decent. Jake Trotter, melody sounds great and is really catchy, but it needs to be a little bit more upfront. Interesting. So my review, I think a lot of people mentioned a lot of things that I'm going to say. I think the pad that you had there was a little bit, I guess, intrusive. I don't know what word I'm looking for. Very distracting overall, just like Alan said. The panning constantly made it feel a little bit more present and in my face than maybe it should. Typically, pads are used as like almost a way to fill out space without being too present and too dense. They're just sort of something that's a little bit more secondary in nature oftentimes. So adding like an effect like a panning effect to this really made it stand out a bit more than maybe it should, which is why, who was that? Someone just mentioned that like the melody, Jake Trotter said the melody sounds great, but it needs to be a little bit more upfront. I think the reason why he sort of felt like that is because the melody and the pad are sort of competing at that point, just because they sit in a similar space and the pad is not as secondary as it maybe should be. So just being a little bit more straightforward with it, not panning it, and maybe just pushing it into the back a little bit more with some more reverb. Having them sit in a separate space might result in better balance. So that might be something that you want to try. Overall, like many people said, it's a good beat, very solid, a lot of room for the artist, as Ganzi said in the chat. Yeah, I think I could definitely hear an artist use this. I think you did a good job of playing with automation as well. When you sort of transition from the hook into the verse, it was not as if you completely changed the texture all in one go. I noticed that you sort of transitioned it out from the hook into the verse. I thought that small detail really helped transition in from one section into the other, and that's a really helpful tool that I'm actually going to put a video out on. Maybe it's this week. I think it's this week. It talks about this idea where, like, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but basically a problem of like a lot of DAWs is how everything's sort of block based. And so we can really get stuck into this mindset of like, all right, 16 bars is done, the hook starts now. And that can really create a disjointed type of feel in terms of how the beat fluctuates from one section to another. And so a small technique like this is something that you can use in order to help create a more fluid experience and not have it be as jarring. So good job on that front. That's Mayhem's beat. Happy you're here, Mayhem. I think everyone else is too. Let's do one more sexy movie beat. You guys have some interesting movies here. Disney Soul. Didn't that just come out like last week? Is that a good movie? Should I watch Disney Soul? I tried to watch Jojo Rabbit. I was like, this is too silly for me. I'm a big boy and I don't like silly movies. I plan on rewatching The Sopranos or The Wire again. Maybe True Detective season 1. Maybe I'll try to watch Deadwood. I've never watched Deadwood. Anyways, let's listen to the Simpsons movie. I'm not going to listen to that. Tenet? That movie didn't even make sense. Let's listen to Ahmed Suhaimi. I'm an idiot. I can't read. Guys, I got a bump on my head. If you guys are in the Discord, I bumped my head while doing pull-ups, so I'm dyslexic now. I can't read. His beat's called Fairies. Let's take a listen. All right, that was Ahmed's beat, Fairies. By the way, guys, actually, let me get into the review and then I'll mention what I was going to talk about. So just like Sam Urel said, you might want to have some control on that 808. Overall, I think the low end is just way too overpowering in this beat. this was something I was going to talk about in an upcoming video, but I plan on getting your guys' help for that. I'm going to do another video like I did in the last week here, where I sort of talk about some red flags and things that you might want to avoid. So if you want to participate in a sort of fix my subscriber type of video, send your beats to the exact same email that you've been doing. Subject line will be fix my beats, and include your Fruity Loops file as well as the actual MP3 if you guys want to appear in a future video of mine. And also let me know in the email if you do want me to name you, because if I obviously say, hey, this beat needs fixing, you might be embarrassed, and I don't want to embarrass you. So let me know if you want to get mentioned. So yeah, that's one thing. One of the things that I'm going to mention with this beat is that the low end here, especially with like an 808, out of all the low end bass textures that you can use, the 808 is probably like one of the most powerful types of basses. And because of that, you might watch like how to make a bass line type of video, even from mine that I made from like a year ago. A lot of those concepts that were in that video tied into like a sort of more acoustic, straightforward type of bass. And those types of basses, you can get away with having a very constant presence in the low end. But with an 808, like you guys could hear, it was very overpowering. It sort of wore me down partway through the beat just because it was constantly present. And so, yeah, if you're going to use an 808 in your beat, a lot of guys, this is probably like trap is your first genre of beat you've ever made, so you might not be even aware of like, well, what are some other types of basses that I can use for my beats? And 808 is probably going to be like one of the most powerful types of basses that you can use, and because of that, it's probably going to be a better idea to at times be a little bit more conservative in terms of how often they're playing and the actual shape of it, maybe controlling the release like Sam said in the chat. So that's one thing that I would say with his beat. I did like how you went back and forth creating variation with the beat. I'm not sure whether you created the loop yourself or if you just sampled, but you did a good job of creating different sections, like an A-B section. You might have used different parts of the loop, but nonetheless, that was a welcomed variation. The last thing I'll say is maybe adding a little bit more variation with the drum loop. I think it was like the same drum pattern throughout the entire beat. So maybe just even like dropping the drums here and there, maybe adding a few extra notes here and there. These small little things that you just sort of don't even bother thinking of. They can really go a long way in just like keeping the listener interested just for a little bit longer. I did a video, I can't remember how long now, is like 3 techniques that you can use to keep your beat interesting. Just interjecting some variation, whether it be with the drums or just slapping in a random sound here and there, it can really go a long ways in keeping the listener engaged and interested. So that might be something you might want to try, especially when you're using like a loop like this. It's really hard to pull them apart and create different sections for your beat just because so much of it is static. So just doing secondary techniques like that might be a way to create variation in the beat overall. Thank you, Grout, for the instructions, my friend. Grout's a legend. He's got exams coming up in January, he told me, so let's all hope and pray he does well. As I mentioned, Grout, I have a little gig that you might be interested in. I'll slap some dollars into your pocket. I need your coding expertise. So, yeah, once you're done exams, Grout, we will talk. Video chats. I want to see how Grout looks. Something tells me he's a sexy man, and I think I'm right. Favorite Arabic dish? I don't know if I've ever had Arabic food. I've had Turkish food. Guys, Turkish pizza is delicious. Highly recommend it. All right, so let's do another Discord beat. We will do the next keyword. This time, let me know what your favorite TV show is. We did movies last time. Let me know what your favorite TV show is. Who's into Reese these days? The chocolate? I like chocolate. Actually, we'll do that next. After this one, I want to know what your guys' favorite chocolate is. So yeah. Anyways, let's listen to a Discord beat here. Where am I? Whoa! Let's listen to Mountain Wizards beat, Lamp beats Mando Spacebar. Keyword is, let me know what your favorite TV show is. If any of you choose a real goofy one, I'm probably not going to play your beats. If you say Big Bang Theory, I'm not playing your beats. Here we go with this beat. Once again, if you want to submit your beats, the instructions are, I think, over there. I can't remember where. How's my camera set up? This way? No, opposite way. Right over here. Instructions are right there. Send the beat over. If you link your Discord, I can slap it into the Discord. I plan on doing a fix the subscribers beat video soon. So please send over some beats. Mountain Wizard, Mando Spacebar, Lamp beats. Here we go. All right, that was a peculiar beat. I'm not sure I've ever heard of a beat like that. I'm not sure what genre that is, so it's really hard to... someone said it's Animal Crossing type beat or something. That one made me laugh. That was Damon, I think you said that. Yeah, it's really hard to review this beat because I'm not sure what you were going for. This would be a beat that, like, dying a giggle. This would be a beat that, like, might work for, like, this weird little video game. I remember when I made the soundtrack to My Friend Pedro, there are, like, these levels where, like, the guy's in some dreamland, and I made songs like this almost. Maybe the guy's going for that poppy type of feel. If so, I think the BPM of the beat's good. The structure of the beat's good. I think the only issue, if this is a poppy type of beat you're going for, just using electric piano and having that be the only texture and trying to keep the beat interesting just based off of that wasn't working for me. I think maybe adding more layers, more textures in that a little bit more unique might have helped. I really don't have much to say about this beat. I don't really think anyone in the chat does either, because it's a strange beat. Very strange beat, so I really have no idea what to compare it against to, because I don't know what it's going for. Overall though, choose a more prominent texture, because that electric piano was it sort of washed away. It wasn't really prominent. It was very secondary. It wasn't loud. It just felt like a very weak instrument, when typically that needs to be a little bit more strong and prominent, because that's like really the only instrument you had in this beat. So yeah, Ray says need a vid to show how to submit, can't figure it out. The instructions are right, I can't remember which way is it again, right over yonder. Just email me, and the keyword is to just choose what your favorite TV show is. Ooh, we got some good TV boys in here. Breaking Bad, hey. I just finished watching The Shield. That was interesting. It was an interesting show. Westworld, I watched the first season. Halfway through the first season, I was like, I know that this show is going to end up being a mess, so I bailed on it. And it looks like I was right. I'm just patting myself on the back here. Let's do a Black Mirror here. I enjoyed Black Mirror. Let's listen to Christian Schmidt's beat here. His Discord is Chris Paris. Hip Hoppy Agree. All right, that was Christian Schmidt's beat, Hip Hoppy Agree. Cool beat. I really liked the drum sounds. I know they're not for everyone. Some people in the chat were sort of picking at them, but I thought they sounded great. Lou Reed agrees. The snare fits great. The hi-hat, some people wanted it louder, but I feel like that might have gotten in the way if it was a very dense, abrasive hi-hat. It sounded like the hi-hat was very, it wasn't like a typical trap hi-hat, which is very short in length. This one had a lot of texture and robustness to it. So bringing that up would really start to take a lot more of the spotlight in the beat, which might throw some things off. So I thought the drum programming was great. I thought the layering in the beat was great. Everything worked really well musically, especially during the sections where you had a lot of the instruments coming in. Musically speaking, everything worked well. There wasn't anything that felt like it was not necessary or felt like it was sticking out in a bad way. Everything sort of meshed well. Good sound selection for the switch ups because you chose really great textures that really worked well with one another. The thing that I would point out in terms of what might be fixed, I think the main loop, I think that sort of reversed piano that you used, it sort of lacked a little bit of low end. It felt like during the verse section, there's like a gap in the beat where the 808 didn't have distortion on it and the main loop didn't have low end on it. So there was like a sort of gap in between there. So whether you want to fix that with bringing a little bit more low end presence, taking off as much filter as you did or EQing as you did with that loop, or maybe distorting the 808 a tiny bit more, that might be something you might want to try. That's just something that I sort of caught. As Prod by A just mentioned the counter melody was In Your Face, that piano that came in. So maybe just reducing the volume and maybe cutting out some of the high end frequencies and maybe pushing it back a tiny bit. It's something that you might want to do. This is something that I forgot to mention in the video that I put out last week, by the way. Here's a little tip. I read this, I can't remember where it was, but in terms of like playing around with space, the brighter the sound, the more upfront it's gonna feel. So if you can imagine if you were at like the Grand Canyon and you clap your hands, obviously at the first clap, it's gonna have the most high pitch presence in it. And every single time you hear that echo come back, less and less of that high presence is gonna come through. And that's how sort of reverb is, I guess it's how you can enunciate a sort of reverby feel to your sound. So if you have a very bright, polished sound that has a lot of high end to it and you sort of push it back, it's not going to do as good a job in terms of creating a good amount of depth as opposed to maybe cutting off a lot of the high end of a sound. So I think that might be something that you could do with this piano here. Just because it felt really, really dry and in your face, cutting a lot of the high end, making it a little bit more secondary could be a technique that you want to use. The last thing I'll say, really good job with the structure. It's a really fluid structure, how we got from one section to another. You had these nice little cool sounds. You had that sort of electric guitar playing here and there. You did a good job of masking the gaps in between each section, which is something that's something that I learned a few years into beat making. The fact that you already know this is a good indicator that you know what you're doing and you got a good ear to you. So good job to Christian in his avatar here. He's wearing a nice little hat. So hats off to Christian. That's what I'll say to you, hat man Christian. Next up, we've got Band of Brothers. I enjoyed that show as well. So let me select it. This is from, I don't even know how to pronounce this name. Sobolus Kowalka. I'm an idiot. Lo-fi beat. In this file, it looks like there's still like 30 seconds left. Is something gonna happen, guys? Is something gonna play? Something's about to happen. Nothing's about to happen. All right, so in terms of my review, just like I made a reference to the video that I put out last week, again, we have something similar happening here. A lot of people are saying it's a very sleepy time beat, like Ice, Black Frost, and Pits. And I think part of the reason why is because this is very rhythmically, very predictable. And whenever you had a change in like the chord or the sample chop or whatever that was, you'd have like a drum hit at the exact same time, and like every single time the drum sounded hit, we had a change in the melody, and it's just like nothing had like rhythmic variation in between each of the layers. And so I think that really contributed into why so many people felt like it's a very sleepy time beat. In terms of the BPM as well, I think it was a little bit too slow. The textures that were used, I thought it was a very unique, interesting main sound. It almost felt like something you would hear in a sort of Mad Lib type of beat, maybe. I think the execution was a little bit off if you're trying to make a lo-fi beat as per the title of this beat. Is my mic on, or did I? Yeah, it's on. Is it on? Did I? What? Where am I? Yeah, it is on. So yeah, I think the execution was a little bit off just because even with the hi-hat that you use, it's like a very trap hi-hat, very bright, very polished sound. And that really stuck out because so many of the other textures were very lo-fi. So just a mismatch of textures, and the execution in terms of the arrangement and the composition wasn't all that there. I just think maybe pushing the BPM up, making something that's like 80, 90 BPM, playing around with the different rhythms, really bringing up the energy a little bit more, and not have this be a sleepy time beat might help. But obviously, if you're going for a sleepy time beat, if I was to make this a sleepy time beat, a very nocturnal, slow type of beat, what I probably would do is first off get rid of that hi-hat, change it to something that fits with the aesthetic a little bit more, say more like acoustic boom bap type of hi-hat. You can find that in my drum pack that I have for free. And I probably would start playing around. Obviously, I'd still play around with the rhythmic variation of the drums, try to create a better drum pattern that isn't playing at the exact same time as your melody. I think also just playing around with textures, having certain sounds come in and out, playing around with ambience, playing around with the space, basically. If I want to make a spacey, sleepy time vibe with this beat and still keep it interesting and still have energy to the beat, doing it in a different way in terms of having textures come in and out. When you hear like a Madlib beat, a lot of the MF Doom type of stuff, he has like weird like stand-up comedians playing in the background, these weird vocal samples coming in and out. These small little details like that will really go a long way in filling up the beat and keeping the listener engaged, rather than just if you're going to depend solely on the music and you're going to have a very sleepy time melody and it has a very low energy, it's going to be a lot harder to keep the listener engaged. So, yeah, let's go right on to... Oh, this is a recent TV show that I enjoyed, Chernobyl. He's got this, Des Hiley's got this beat here, 9 Once. Let's take a listen. I just zoned out there, guys. All right, unfortunately, Des, I got to give you the smooth fade out there. Not much of that beat was working for me, as the chat is letting you know. Again, I got to make reference to the video I just put out. You got too cute with that drum pattern. You wanted to be a fancy boy. You just were haphazard with your drum pattern here, and nothing ever really came together. And that's a really large part of why. The beat took forever to start, and once it did start, it didn't really feel like it started because the drum pattern was just so out there. It didn't really follow any structure, and ultimately the beat had no structure because of it. The piano that you played there, completely wrong notes. I'm not sure what happened there. So it sounded like you're just forcing sounds into the beat, even if they sort of don't work. So yeah, I think if I had to advise you, start from the fundamentals, start at the basics. Don't worry about putting full beats together. Don't worry about putting full songs together. Just focus in on how do I make a good drum loop, a basic drum loop that's going to work with this beat. How do I make a good fundamental loop, and how do I tie those two things together, and then start worrying about like arrangement and coming up with different sections and playing counter melodies and whatnot. Just because what you did with this beat, it was just lacking in a lot of the fundamentals of what makes a song actually a song. There's no sort of consistent pace, no rhythm to it, just because the drum pattern was so wacky. And yeah, I'll say go back to the basics and just start from scratch in terms of like the fundamentals of beat making. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but yeah, it's just the way it is, my friend. Last TV show type beat. Oh, I gotta give respect here to a fellow Curb Your Enthusiasm lover. Funniest show of all time, in my opinion. Delga, he's got this beat here. Delga 2001. Let's take a listen. Here we go. Beat's already over. All right, well, I guess I'll review based on that. I think good job of picking the matching layers with that sample. Everything really tied together in terms of your sample selection and your sound selection. So you did a good job of marrying that together. That can be really difficult sometimes, finding good drum textures that work with your sample. Other than that, though, I can't really say much because there's the same loop over and over again, and maybe that's a sticking point for you. So that's going to be something that you might want to try to develop and learn how to come up with different arrangements based off of using your samples. I did a video a while back on like 7 different techniques that you can use if you use a loop. That sort of also applies to samples. So take a look at that video if that's something you're struggling with, and that's the reason why there isn't much in terms of overall structure with his beat. You have a good core idea. The people in the chat said they liked it, and they liked the core idea of it, but obviously a 1 minute sort of never-ending loop that did the same thing over and over again is not a beat. That's just a loop played over and over again. So I would have liked to hear you push it and push this structure to come up with something completely full. Yeah, just like Noseblind said, some more variation would have been nice. You did have that scratching section, but again, it's not a musical change really. Yeah, just push yourself in terms of structuring, trying to think outside the box when it comes to sampling. Oh God, my foot's asleep. Oh, I've been sitting on my foot this whole time, guys. Not good. Okay, we'll do a Discord beat. Is Better Call Saul a good show? We have Frandy Brown here. Their favorite show is Better Call Saul. I watched like half of the first season and found it to be low stakes compared to Breaking Bad. I'm thinking of giving it another shot, so let me know in the chat. Should I watch Better Call Saul or no? Let's listen to a Discord beat, and the next keyword. How about this one? Let me know what your favorite book is. I just got a new book recently. It's called The Sovereign Individual. Wait, what's the full title? It's like The Sovereign Individual, the transition into the information age or something. It talks about how we were in the industrial age and now we are in the middle of a new age of the information age, and that's why shit's going crazy nowadays and nothing makes sense. It's because we're in a transition. Really illuminating. It was written like 20 years ago, and like a lot of what I'm reading, it's like they already predicted a lot of the stuff that's happening now. Interesting stuff so far. Anyways, let's listen to Picostito's beat. Is this a Christmas beat? What is this? What's happening here?
Es Navidad, una época de paz y felicidad. Tómatelo con calma, ve por una taza de café y solo relájate.
All right, that was Picostito's beat. That was a really cool beat. Let me rewind here. What's going on here at this beat? Okay, at first I thought that was a sample, but really great job of manipulating this to sound like a sample, because I was for sure thought that was a sample. Yeah, cool job of making your beat here. Really great arrangement, very simple, and yet it felt so full because there's a good selection of sounds. It felt like very Madlibian, something that you'd hear from the Beat Conducta from the earlier volumes. Good Drum choice, I think, as Ridge Major mentioned, the volume of them might have been better off a little bit louder, but nonetheless, the sounds that you chose here really worked well with the beat and the overall like direction of the beat you're going with. Unique style, unique direction here. You had like that string that was constantly playing, and I sort of, for whatever reason, I really love beats like that. And you had the guitar being very melodic around the strings. And yeah, I think the only thing is maybe the structuring. I would like to hear this as a full beat, but really, really cool beat. I enjoyed that beat a lot. Very simple, but very effective. Are my instructions in the Discord or in the thing that confusing? Why are so many people struggling with these instructions? What did I write? Submit your beats, join the Discord. Maybe I should put the use your keyword that I announce. Yeah, I think the order of my instructions here is probably not that great. Step 1, I'll fix it next time. All right, we've got a lot of books here. I'm not very well read, so I haven't heard of many of these. A lot of people say this House of Leaves is like the scariest book of all time. The Canticle for Leibowitz. I remember reading a little bit of that book, and I just got distracted. Unfortunately, Taylor, you did not attach any beat in here. You goofed up, my friend. The Communist Manifesto. There's a communist invasion in this chat. My God. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I think I remember the cover of that. So let's listen. By Stylist.
Yo, about to chill.
Hey, yo, Stylist, where you get this shit?
All right, that was ADD in the form of a beat. So that was Stylist Beat Power. Very strange I'm not gonna say strange, but a very particular problem that I have with this beat is just there's just a little bit too much going on at all times. There was like maybe 20, 30 seconds where I started to get the feel of like, okay, this is a good amount in this beat. And then you start introducing more and more layers back and back again. This is sort of, in my experience, a sort of natural progression of most beat makers or creatives in general, where you first start off trying to just come up with something simple and come up with like the basics, and that's just tough and that's hard to do. And once you get a good feeling for that, then at that point you start to say, okay, I'm gonna start trying to figuring out how to add more and more into this beat. And once you get to that phase, your beats start inflating more and more, and there's just a little bit too much going on. And then eventually you take a step back and you sort of think, well, why do my beats sound a little bit more different than what the sort of pros sound like? And a lot of it is because of simplicity, and I think that's what would be next for you, stylist. It sounds like you have a good conception of how to put different sounds together, and everything fits musically speaking. I think maybe trying to go in the direction of simplifying might be a good idea. This is the case when it comes to design, period. Like, what was the quote that I had? Good design is getting rid of the unnecessary so the necessary may speak. That's something that I noticed in my own beats. The more, I guess, the more stripped down it is, the more I take out little things that don't really contribute, that don't really matter, that just take up space, the better it feels. Same thing with like my thumbnail design for YouTube. Once I started simplifying things and not have it be so cluttered, people started clicking on them more. I think this principle exists across all domains. Obviously, you need to go through the phase of like inflation and just shoving things in just to get better at, okay, how do I add more textures in? But once you get to the point where you need to do what's better for the beat, simplifying, get rid of things that don't really help. If you take a sound out and the beat still gives you that same feeling, that sound wasn't necessary to create that feeling. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do as producers. We're trying to cultivate and create some sort of emotion. And if there's a sound in your beat that is there just for the sake of it, and it's not really cultivating that emotion, it's just there for like a show-off piece, almost saying, hey, look at me, I can make this crazy wacky melody. Like there's that sound in this beat where it's just like I don't know whether it's like a flute or something. It was like in the left channel, I think, or some crazy little melody that just went off. Didn't really add anything into the beat, didn't really make me feel anything, so it was ultimately just like an unnecessary texture. So I think that's the one thing. I think that's the thing that you need to keep in mind for where you are at right now. Just strip down and try to see how that feels with your beats. I think ultimately that will end up with better results, because again, it sounds like you know what you're doing. Musically speaking, you know what you're doing. You have your idea of what your sound you're going for, your particular sound. I think it's just scaling back at this point might be good. Thank you, Kim. Kim says she likes my videos. Maybe it's a he. Is Kim a boy's name? Wasn't there a Kim.com? Wasn't he a big fat guy? Ridge said, I said that in one of my videos. As a beginner, it's so easy to fall in the trap of adding stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a trap. It is like a necessary step in development, just because you sort of do need to learn how to add components into your beat. But ultimately, you'll get better and better at sort of recognizing when it's just a needless texture that's just for the sake of making yourself feel good, versus a texture that actually has a purpose in the beat and actually creates some sort of emotion and helps you flesh out your idea. It's just doing what's better for the beat instead of doing what's better for you and making yourself feel good when you want to say, look at me, I'm a musical fancy boy. So yeah, that's my review there and my mini rant. Once again, guys, we're probably halfway through the stream. Thank you for showing up. I hope you're having a lovely time, because I know I am. I'm going to be doing another video where I do a fix my subscriber video type of thing. So please, if you want to join in the fun, send an email to the exact same email that's on the screen right now that you've been sending your beats to, and have the subject line be "Fix My Beats," and include your file name, the actual MP3 or WAV file or whatever. And let me know also in the email whether you want to be named or not. Because if you're embarrassed about your beat, then I understand if you're if you don't want to be named. All right, so let's listen to "We Live in a Society" by Zargon. I don't know what that book is, but Zargon made me laugh, so I like it. Wu-Tang is the beat name, by Brian Clough. Let's go.
Behaving up. Stone love a bad boy sound, different himself anyway. So him down a DJ about ya, but on an easy thing for conquer, you see me? Cause Rory have murder right now him corner, not true you take it too simple.
Yeah, but I can respect Lord. I kill musical people, you know.
Clad bad boy sound.
What is that vocal sample saying? All right, so that was Brian Clough's beat. The beat's name is Wu-Tang. So I'm going to assume that the beat's intention is to sound like a Wu-Tang beat. And if that's the case, I would say you sort of need to be a little bit more intentional with the textures that you use here. A lot of the times, if you're just starting out making beats, you might only be used to trap beats because that's a lot of people's entry point into beat making nowadays is making trap beats. I would say that you need to sort of explore other types of drum textures and bass textures. I have a couple of videos on my channel of like 5 different drums for beat making, and there's also another video of like 4 different bass types for beat making. I'd recommend checking those videos out because they can really help you understand which textures work with which genres. I don't want to sit here and say always do that if you want this result, just because I don't like the idea of being prescriptionary and telling you guys do A and B to get C. I sort of like to keep the door open for experimentation. But again, nonetheless, if we're intending here to have a sort of grimy Wu-Tang type of beat, having very clean trap drums isn't going to be the way to get that result, and using an 808 isn't going to be the way to get that result. You sort of do need very dirty, grimy types of drums that you'd find in a drum break, and you need to chop those up. For a bass, you can sample a bass, have a video on that, or you can use like a more acoustic sounding bass, but a very clean 808 like you're using here. 808s were used back in the days, but almost as a sort of supplementary tone to whatever bass that they tried to sample or use. That was a very weak bass, but nonetheless a sort of cleaner type of bass 808 that you had here doesn't really work. And as well, look into saturation. That can be a very helpful tool in really warming up your beats. I plan on doing a video explaining why saturation is so helpful and what it can provide in your beat. But tape emulation, things like RC20. I like to use Reels by I don't know who makes Reels, but yeah, there's like plugins that you can use to like put onto your textures. I'd probably use that on your main melodic loop there, and just really make it sound a little bit more grimy. And yeah, just overall be a little bit more deliberate with your sound selection, even if this main sound that you use in your beat would fit into the aesthetic. For example, just for argument's sake, if you choose all your drum sounds to be a completely different aesthetic, that's when you can get a very disjointed, sort of disconnected, scatterbrain type of beat where nothing really works just because none of the textures fit into one particular direction, let's say. So yeah, as Sam says, saturation is not an easy tool to use at the beginning. I would recommend being a little bit more conservative with it. But yeah, Kid Eskimo's in here. Internet Face is in here. Ridge Major. He's wanting some feedback. Maybe I'll get to yours. Lou Reed, still in here. Sexy Man Grout. Here we go, guys. Let's go to the next one here. The Notebook. Is that the movie The Notebook? I don't know. Let's listen to this. Confused Boy Beats. A boom bap beat. So let's listen to if he has the textures right for his boom bap beat. All right, that was a beat by Confused Boy Beats. So obviously a boom bap type of beat is the direction here. Whoops, where am I? So what I'll say is that much like Color or Noseblind said, it's a little bit too choppy, I feel like, and this was something that I mentioned like the very first or second beat that we were listening to, YouTube vlogger type beat. Yeah, like I think with this example here, you were at least musical. The chops that you came up with at least made sense musically. There was some musical progression to it, so it's not as bad. But nonetheless, like when you have an excessively choppy beat, or when you're first starting getting into sampling, you might have the idea that the more chops the better, and that sort of makes you feel like you're actually doing something. The idea of just taking like 2 or 3 chops and making a loop out of that, it might feel like cheating, and then you just excessively chop things up to get there, just to help you feel like you're actually doing something. But once again, we need to do what's better for the beat instead of just making yourself feel better for doing a lot of work. I think this beat might have been better served if the chops were just made a little bit more simple and it was just a more fluid feeling beat and everything sort of tied together a little bit more. I think that would have helped the beat sound a little bit better. The bass line was enjoyable, although like Syed said, the bass needs to get brought up, so whether that's through just volume or maybe some saturation or distortion, that might have helped. But yeah, I think the big culprit in this beat was just the excessive chopping. Again, this goes to the same thing that I was talking about before. Just when you first start out, you're trying to get a good understanding of what you're doing, and then you sort of push it to an extreme where you're doing a little bit too much. I think just scaling back your sampling technique here, trying to go for something a little bit more simplistic that feels actually musical and fluid, that might serve you a little bit better. I did like the switch up in this beat though, when you had the beat sort of go minimal and you had a little bit less chops and things opened up a little bit more. I enjoyed that section of the beat a little bit more just because it felt like an actual beat at that point instead of just like an exhibition in chopping. So yeah, that's my review of Confused Boys beat there. Guys, we are an hour and a half into this stream. We're having fun. We're having giggles. But now it's time to get serious and listen to this beat. This Kill a Mockingbird beat by KODB Productions. Anime type beat. Let's take a listen. We're probably going to go for another, I'd say half an hour minimum. So thank you guys for showing up again. This is our first stream in like a month, I think. I took December off just because it was the Christmas season. I plan on filming my course material. I was planning on doing it this week, but I got a bump on my noggin, so I have to wait for this to heal up. So the course right now, for those wondering, is probably going to come out mid-March, late March, I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm very excited for it. I think I've put together something interesting here. Just because with a lot of YouTube videos, it's really, really difficult to get deep into one topic because so much of beat making ties into one another. So if I make a video on like how to improve your drum patterns, it's really hard to do that and still have you guys understand, well, what type of drum pattern you come up with is going to be closely tied to what the melody is doing, and what melody you create is going to be closely tied to which textures you're going to be using. So this really gave me a chance to be very comprehensive, very all-encompassing. Like every single component of beat making is going to be covered here in a very deep way that's like pretty much impossible on YouTube unless I made like, I think I calculated this is going to be the equivalent to like 50, like a year's worth of videos all in one. And it's going to be very comprehensive in a way that's just impossible for YouTube. Yeah. And all the loop makers have made their loops. You're going to get 50 free loops with the course. You're going to get my premium drum kit, which will only be made available in the course. And for the people that want to sell beats, I have a marketing tool that I use that costs like hundreds of dollars a month. And this tool is going to show you what keywords you should be using. And no matter if you're just starting your channel out or if you're a bigger channel, it basically ranks every single keyword in terms of how good they are and how easily you'll be able to rank for those keywords. So that's something that I've been using to grow my channel, and it's been working pretty good for me so far. I've been on YouTube for like a year and a half, and it's been going fine. I'm happy with the results. So hopefully you guys can use that tool to have some results yourselves if you join the course. There's also going to be weekly feedback reviews and more content going into the future. So yeah, if you guys are interested, I do have the SEO sauce. One of my best pals is SEO. He has SEO for a living. So he gamed me. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually went to school for marketing and finance, and I read a ton of marketing stuff just because it interests me. So yeah, if you guys want to keep a lookout, head over to betterbeatmaker.com. Join the waitlist. I'm going to be doing 20% off for the people that are on the wait list. So you don't want to miss out on that big savings. I don't know how much the course is going to cost so far, but like I mentioned, it's not going to be some shitty Udemy course that's like $15. So don't expect that if that's what you're looking for. This is going to be very in-depth. I've already been working on this for 2 months now, and it's going to take another 2-3 months. So yeah, it's very, very comprehensive, and the idea of the course is to show you guys the common mistakes, the things that, like, when you play your beats and you think, what am I doing wrong? I can't figure out what's going wrong with this beat. I basically take a step-by-step approach to show you guys, all right, when you're coming up with your loop, here are the common things that you need to look out for. Here's what you might want to think about. And when you come up with your drums, here's some things you might want to think about. And it's basically going to identify what mistakes you're probably making at every single step of the beat making process. That's the sort of core intention of the course. Anyways, KODB, Killing a Mockingbird. Let's listen to this beat.
ああ、落ち着け。なんなら今からあんたの一番大事な人間を殺してやろうか。
All right, that was a very deliberate, hard outro. So with this beat, I think I agree with Big Bank, Take Little Bank. Really cool texture in this beat. I really like that main loop. Really cool idea for the core texture in the beat. I think the mixing of the beat sort of hurt it. I just didn't really get much of a low-end presence here, or a balanced low-end presence. I think maybe having some adjustments to the low end could have helped. Yeah, I think cool sound selection. I'm not sure whether you came up with that loop or not, if it's just a raw loop. I imagine it's just a raw loop because you did the sort of octave up, octave down type of technique with your arrangement. and that's commonly used if people have a loop and they have no real way of creating variation. If so, I think maybe pushing your arrangement to be a little bit more varied and a little bit more up and down in terms of the energy level could help. I know you've been in this stream many times, KODB, and I appreciate you coming. I think I hear some good ideas in this beat. I would say maybe push the arrangement here, see what else you can do with this beat, and just make an adjustment to the low end just because it was a little bit lacking. Ice Black Frost says, I just mix while doing the beat. I do the same thing, and I recommend doing that because a lot of the mixing decisions you'll make can really inform creative decisions down the road. So for example, if I choose a sound and I really start playing with reverb and start horsing around with like a creative mixing type of mentality, that can really inform what you're going to do with later on textures, how much space needs to be filled still, what type of texture you'll choose next in terms of like if you can control how many the frequency space that a sound takes up using an EQ. Personally, I think that's a great way to produce, just to constantly have your mixing tools by your side, because it can really help bring everything together. Having said that, I think mixing and mastering your beats at the very end and taking hours and hours on that process is a waste of time. If you guys think that's controversial, let me know and maybe I can expand. Let's listen to, actually, we have to do another keyword. We'll do the final keyword of the night. We'll listen to another half an hour of beats with that keyword. Let me do a Discord beat right now. The next keyword, so we've done movies, we've done TV shows, we've done books. Guys, let me know what your favorite album of all time is. If you choose a goofball album, maybe I'll play your goofball beat. Maybe I want to hear some goofball albums. So let me know what your favorite album is. That's the final keyword of the night. And it will be very interesting to see what your guys' musical taste is. If you got some fellow boomers in here, maybe you'll get some beats that I like or albums that I like. Final Discord beat of the night is Stephen Bellin, or is it Stephen Bellin? Everdeen. Let's take a listen. All right, that was Stephen Bellin's beat there. Yeah, Deconstructionist says too much stuff going on. I think that would be the big culprit in this beat. I think there's a couple of things I would say are a little bit problematic. Too many textures, too much sounds going on, and also, like I mentioned in the video that I put out this week, again, I'll have to mention it again, the flatness. There's just like no depth to this beat. Everything was very dry and in your face. Everything sat in the foreground. So I think this beat could have been definitely helped by pushing some things way back in the background, pushing some things into the middle ground, giving things their own space. So that way the beat doesn't feel as congested, doesn't feel like these textures and sounds are all fighting against each other to actually be heard. That way things can start to work with one another and have their own space in the beat. So that's one of the big reasons why so many people said they felt like this beat's too busy, too much going on. Playing around with space, making things more secondary, making things more primary, having a little bit more control of the beat would have definitely helped. As well, some people didn't like the textures in this beat. I thought at least they're unique. You tried to do something unique here, which I'll always applaud. You did something a little bit different. The textures, some of them worked, some of them didn't, honestly. I will say, though, maybe start off with something a little bit more straightforward once again. It kind of sucks when you first start out that you sort of feel like maybe I'm saying limit your creativity. I think it's really important to understand what the rules are before you break them. I think understanding what the norms are before you try to do something abnormal is really important, because that's how you get a good understanding of what's expected, what the context is, what's happening in terms of like how to come up with a normal sounding beat, and then pushing the sort of envelope from a place that is understandable will help. This is something that I really struggled with when I first started making beats. I just wanted to completely take the limiters off, completely take my own limitations off is what I meant there, and just do wild, wacky shit, and nothing ever came together. None of my beats ever felt like they worked. It just sort of felt like they were just a bunch of different sounds forced together. And it wasn't only until I was like, okay, something's wrong with my beats. I really need to like figure out how to put together something basic and something that's understandable. And I think that's sort of the issue with this beat here. There's like very hard to understand what this beat was going for in terms of its overall context and like what type of beat is this producer trying to make here. And interestingly enough, that's when I started making boom bap beats, and that's when I got those few placements with Joey Badass and all those guys back in the days, is when I was like, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I'm going to start making boom bap beats for a little bit, just because my favorite producers, they all stem from that era. So I thought learning that era was a good place to start, and then whatever I make after that, I'll at least have some good foundations, some good fundamentals. And yeah, that's when I got to those placements. But nonetheless, that's a little history lesson for you guys. That's the reason why I made boom bap beats back in the days. It wasn't necessarily because I liked it. I really love avant-garde, wacky, crazy beats. This just so happens that back in the days, I was just trying to learn how to make beats, and that's what I sort of chose to learn. These beats were just sitting on my computer, and I thought, well, I may as well send these out to rappers. And yeah, that's how I got all those placements. All right, we've got some interesting taste for some of you guys. Let's listen to something unique here. Queen, A Night at the Opera. If you've opened this, it's too late. FLAC. This is some sort of new virus file, is it? I don't know if my computer can even play FLAC. No preview available. Sorry, Serge, my sweet pea. I cannot listen to your beat. I want to listen to something. Some of you guys have unique tastes, so let's go for something first. Arctic Monkeys. Let's listen to this beat. All right, that was Zaltrix beat 12. Interesting reaction from the chats here. This beat needs some milk. I'm not sure what that means, Jay. Trent Lee says a bit too repetitive. Prime says this is good, needs more variation. Sponge did not like the flute in there. What I would say is that I really like the core idea of this. It's a really unique texture with that bass, and therefore this sort of feels like a very unique type of beat. If I heard someone rapping on it, I think I would have enjoyed it. Having said that, like Zayed said in the chat, it was a bit empty. I think using some of those textures and slapping on some reverb would help fill out a little bit more space in this beat and have it feel a little bit more full. There's this song that I did for the soundtrack to this video game called My Friend Pedro. The song's called Cave Crawl. If you go on Spotify, you can find it. One of the things that I did in that beat was I took the sort of higher end frequencies of the bass and I really added a lot of reverb onto the bass. And I think if you did that a tiny bit with this beat, that could really go a long way in making the beat feel a lot more large, taking some of those higher frequencies of the bass just because it is very synthy. It does have a lot of high end presence, and then using that as a thing to fill up space. Or if you want to take your flute and add reverb to that, or the vocal samples, or your snare or whatever, and do the sort of bust reverb technique, I think filling out the space in this beat would have helped. As well, for the switch up, you went really minimal, and with this beat, just because it's not taking up much space already, it felt a little bit too minimal. Again, this beat was a really unique idea in my opinion. I really liked it. If the beat got bigger instead of smaller for the switch up, for the hook, that beat would have been a really cool idea for me. Like adding a cool synth bass underneath and having the beat feel very epic for the hook. Yeah, my brain's going a lot of different ways for what could have been done with this beat, and to me that's like a sort of sign of a good idea. Just in my opinion though. History of swear words, what? Yeah, I think cool idea. I think it just needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. And I would say push yourself in terms of the arrangement. Let's listen to something else unique. I've never even heard of this. Conk by the Kooks is the favorite album of John Kaminsky's. I have no idea what that is, so let's listen to this song here. Phenomenal. Was quick. That was John Kaminsky's beat. Phenomenal. Obviously going for a lo-fi beat, like Groud says, the chill out 24/7 type of YouTube channel. Yeah, I think good job of the production here. I'm not sure whether that was a sample or whether you just played piano there. The textures that you added around the beat really helped the beat feel very lo-fi. That's a common mistake a lot of people make in terms of just adding like trappier types of drums to their lo-fi beat, and they have a hard time wondering why their lo-fi beat didn't sound lo-fi. You did a good job of making sure every single thing, every single component in this beat sounded lo-fi, so good job on that front. You did a good job of filling out the frequency spaces. You used noise on the very high end, so the beat really felt full. The piano sat a little bit further back. The drums are a little bit more dry, so you had a good combination in terms of depth. I think this was a really great execution. Very good jazzy type of chilled beat. I think maybe if I had to be critical in one sort of aspect of it, when you had the switch up with that piano loop, obviously different notes were playing, but the overall feel of the beat, it didn't really feel too different. So maybe being a little bit more drastic, maybe pushing adding more textures in for the hook, for that switch up, doing something a little bit more different melodically speaking. That might be an idea to help differentiate those two sections, just because obviously you did play different notes, but they still felt very similar. So yeah, maybe that could be something you could do. Nonetheless, though, really great job. You had your intention of creating a lo-fi beat, and I think you executed it very well. Good job to young John Kaminsky. Isn't that the guy from The Office? Oh my God, the guy from The Office is watching my YouTube channel, guys. Hope you and Pam are doing really well. Actually, I hated that show. I only watched up to like season 3. And then once they got together, I was like, the drama in this show is going downhill. The characters are starting to be too wacky. I don't like it anymore. So that's my hot take for you guys. Let's listen to a little bit more of a hip-hop-ish type of person here. To Pimp a Butterfly is Denise's favorite album. Can I play this? My name is Bam. All right, Bam, let's see if I can listen to your beat.
There ain't no one. 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 Lord.
right, that was short. Unfortunately, my friend, it was not sweet though. So it's obviously a sample here. Sounds like you had somewhat of a hard time coming up with a sort of fundamental idea here. Maybe to give you some ideas on how I would use this sample, I did a video a little while ago on like what was the title of it? Like 3 techniques you can use to improve your sampling or something. It sounded like there's some very distinct textures in this sample, so maybe splitting them out using an EQ and being a little bit more deliberate with the overall arrangement and doing something a little bit more musical is something you can do here. This goes to the point that I made at the very beginning of this stream when it comes to making sampled beats. The old choppy, not really paying attention to what's musical, not really paying attention to coming up with a good musical arrangement that makes sense. Just grabbing a bunch of chops and just hitting buttons randomly. That's sort of what this beat felt like. So you need to be a little bit more intentional. At the end of the day, we're still making music. Even if you are sampling, it's still a way of making music, so it has to be musical. This felt like the same. If you substituted this sample for like a piano, it'd be the equivalent to just hitting the same note over and over again, but just with a different rhythm. It's just not enough to keep the listener interested, musically speaking. So you do need to you need to have an intention of making something musical. Yako said, I look like I'm tired. It might be the lighting, but honestly, I did not sleep that long last night, unfortunately. And my bladder is full. So because of that, this is going to be the last beat we do of the night, guys. Thank you once again for coming. I'm going to do one more beat after this. I just want to say you're all sweeties. I love you all. I'll let you know when the next stream's going to be in the Discord. Once again, I'm doing a fix my beat type of video. So if you want to be in the next one, send your beat over to the same email you've been sending it to. Have the subject line be fix my beat. My bladder's about to explode. Jesus. And include the Fruity Loops file, the project file, as well as the MP3 of the beat. And let me know if you want your name in the actual video. I don't want to embarrass you if you're ashamed. As well, if you're interested, my course is coming out in a couple of months. Join the waitlist if you want 20% off. Only people on the waitlist will get access to that discount. And I hope you're having a lovely time. I love you all. And if I could, I would kiss you all one by one. If you assured me I didn't go to jail. If some of you guys are underage, no kisses allowed. I'll kiss your mothers instead. Last beat of the night, My Dark Fantasy by Oasis Beats. He's got this beat called Is This Bryson? Well, let's take a listen to figure out if this is Bryson or not. All right, that was Oasis beat. My bladder is about to explode, so let's quickly go through this. I really like the bass, just like X Coolin said in the chat. I really love a sort of dense synthy bass like that. I think the thing that's really throwing this beat off is the incorrect use of those vocal samples. So that was a big component in driving the musicality of this beat, along with the piano and the bass. It's a very minimal type of beat, but if one of the core components, like those vocal samples, was not musically speaking working with the other components, this is going to really sound off, which is exactly what happened here. So if you're going to fix this, choosing other vocal samples that actually are in key with what you're actually playing, it's going to be necessary in order to have this beat actually work. Next time I'm going to wear a diaper on this stream, guys. I think that might be a solution. Or I'll do this stream while sitting on the toilet. So let me know if you guys think that's a good idea. Either way, guys, that's it for this stream. I love you all. Hugs and kisses. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We've got some good stuff coming out in January in terms of videos. Hopefully you guys like them. And yeah, I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.